Hello everyone, I'm back with more updates regarding the shooter game I'm building with Unreal Engine 5. This week my attention was primarily on aiming and crosshairs. I kicked off the week with some technical difficulties. The source code I migrated to a remote server started to break. When I was setting up Perforce, which is a source control I use for Unreal, I didn't really pay much attention to documentation and didn't set up the type map and the Perforce ignore file properly. After spending the day understanding how Perforce works and hopefully setting up everything correctly this time, I resumed development. I first dealt with mouse sensitivity when aiming. Basically, whenever the player presses the right mouse button, the camera zooms and mouse sensitivity automatically gets reduced. Then I started working on the crosshairs. So what I wanted was to implement crosshairs such that the crosshairs would spread when the player is moving, jumping, etc. And then it would shrink back in if they stop moving, and shrink even further if the player is aiming. This turned out to be a bit more complicated than I initially expected. I planned to create each crosshair arrow separately, then move them based on a crosshair spread value. So the bottom arrow would move downward while the top arrow would move upward and the other arrows would move in their corresponding direction. I first drew the bottom arrow and had it move with movement. Then I drew other's arrow to complete the crosshair. So now the crosshair was moving when the character was running, but I still needed to implement crosshair spread on jumping and weapon fire. So when jumping, the one thing that's different is that crosshair spreads slowly at the beginning of the jump, but shrinks back very quickly once the character is on the ground. And for the shooting, both the spreading and shrinking happen very rapidly and their magnitude is super small. After I was satisfied with the crosshairs, I implemented automatic weapon firing so that the weapon would keep shooting when the player is holding down the right mouse button. Then I moved on implementing different weapons, and the first issue I had is that I'm using the Paragon assets from the Unreal Marketplace, and in those assets each character comes with their weapon attached to their mesh. And what I want is to have the character and the gun separate so that I can have the player switch guns. To do that I had to use Blender, and after spending a lot of time trying to figure out how Blender works, I was able to have the gun as a separate asset. Then I started working on adding a widget that prompts the user to pick up the weapon and display it inside the game. And that's all I've done so far. Hopefully I'll see you next week with more exciting news and some progress on the weapons and the weapon system. See you next week. Thanks for watching.